Welcome back to another video. Today, we are looking at something a little bit extra special. You already know what it is. You've seen the title of the video. It's the Sony A7S III. Woo! I cannot tell you how excited I am for this camera. I love Sony cameras. Most of the videos on this channel are shot on an A7 III. This one certainly is as well. And I have been waiting like a lot of us have for the Sony A7S III. The A7S II was, of course, super popular, still used by loads of people today, loads of videographers. The A7 III is great for video as well, but this absolutely steps it up. And it's not just an incremental upgrade. This is a big deal. There's a lot going on here. Let's just get straight into it. I should say up front, this is a pre-production camera, so unfortunately I'm not able to show you anything that we've shot with the camera. But we can talk about it, and I'll tell you what, there's a lot to talk about. We're gonna go through the whole spec, we're gonna get all that out, and then hopefully sometime in the future, we'll be able to put out a full video with stuff that we've shot, because I cannot wait to be able to do that. Now, diving straight into it, much like the A7S II, the A7S III is very much a video-centric camera. It's very much designed with videographers in mind. Sure, it's got some great photography specs in there as well, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But it very much takes a lot from the A7S II and massively improves on it. It also takes some things from cameras like the A7R IV, like for example, the way it feels, a lot of the kind of ergonomics around it, and then it improves on that as well, including things like the autofocus, all that kind of stuff. First things first, let's talk about those video specs, because that's certainly what I was most interested in, and I'm sure that's what loads of you are going to be most interested in. So first of all, it can shoot 4K at up to 120 frames a second. That's right. 120 frames a second 4K, which is huge. That means we can get that really nice smooth slow motion, but in 4K. And that's 422 10-bit internal, which is super impressive. That means you've got loads of room for how you want to color grade it, for what you want to do with it in post. Of course, because it's 4K, you can zoom and do all kinds of cool stuff. And it's super slow motion, so it looks great. Of course, you do 4K 60 and all that kind of stuff as well. Full HD up to 240 frames a second, so you can get really extra slow motion if you want to capture something super fast and then really slow it down. But I'm really impressed by that 4K 120 frames a second, 422 10-bit. It's worth noting as well, the 4K in this camera is with no crop until you get to 120 or 100 frames a second as well, where you get a 1.1 times crop. So really nothing to worry about, but certainly worth mentioning. There's an extended dynamic range, which looks incredible. You can actually see it as you're filming. It does look really good. Of course, we don't know exactly what that dynamic range stop number is going to be. That's still to be confirmed, but I can tell you right now, it does look great. I cannot wait to color grade some of this footage. Of course, with all that extra speed, 4K 120 frames a second, you're going to need a more powerful card. So there is a CF Express card slot. There's also an SD UHS 2 card slot as well. So you've got dual card slots there, but certainly for that 4K 120, you're going to want to be using the CF Express card. There's also new codecs available with H.265 and XAVCHS codecs available to use. And something that I'm sure a lot of people will be really excited about, there's a new color science in the camera. And it means the S-Log has FX9 color matching, which is really good. It's been really popular for a lot of things, and that's a really nice thing to have in the camera. There's a lot of pro features like that built into the camera. Now, one of the biggest pluses for Sony cameras is, of course, the autofocus. As you will know, if you've shot with any Sony camera, the autofocus is incredible, and this is no different. It's got 759 autofocus points. Of course, it's got that real-time eye autofocus, face tracking, all that kind of stuff, and real-time tracking, all for video as well. So much like with the A7R IV, that's all there, usable for video and photo. And I've got to say, that makes a huge difference when you're filming, especially if you're by yourself filming. It kind of takes focusing out of the equation. It means you don't really have to think about it. It's such a useful thing to have in video as well. You can watch it happening, the little square around the eye, and just tracking your subject around the frame. It's perfect. Of course, it's got 5-axis in-body image stabilization. You get 5.5 stops of IS with this camera, which is great for handheld shooting. It's great for low light shooting as well if you want to use a slower shutter speed while you're taking photos. But what I will say is this camera absolutely builds on the A7S II in terms of low light performance. Now, that camera was known to be fantastic for low light, and this certainly seems to be improving on that and actually taking that to another level. So low light performance with this camera looks like it's going to be absolutely incredible. Now, with all that extra speed, that extra power, you need a new processor in the camera, and there's a new Bionz XR processor in this camera. It's about 8 times faster than the current processor, so really, really quick. And that's how you're able to get all this kind of extra speed and extra power. And something that I asked when Sony were telling me about this, and something that certainly is interesting, is about heat. And you might be thinking to yourself, that's all great, but 4K 120, is it going to overheat? Is that going to be a problem? But Sony have actually designed the body with heat dispersion very much in mind. And I think that's what they've been working on here. And the camera, you know, it feels good. It feels much like an A7R IV or something like that. But I haven't actually been able to put this to the test, but I'm certainly interested to. Sony have said that that has been designed very much with heat dispersion in mind. So hopefully that's not going to be an issue at all. Now, we've talked a bit about video with this camera, and obviously that's probably where the main bulk of users are going to be looking at. I mean, I certainly am excited about this from a video perspective, but that's not to say that it hasn't got some really decent photo specs in there as well. So it's got a 12.2 megapixel sensor, a little bit like the A7S II. It's a relatively low megapixel count, but what you get with that is this fantastic low light performance, coupled with the back illuminated sensor, coupled with that new processor. You can really push the ISO up if you need to, and that makes this fantastic, in particular for astrophotography and for getting photos of the stars, you know, landscapes of stars, starry nights, all that kind of stuff. That is really exciting. I love that kind of photography anyway, and that was something the A7S II was good at as well. So I'm excited to try that out with this camera. It has got ultra high ISO, up to 409,600. Now, I'm not saying that you're gonna wanna use that. I'm not saying you're gonna wanna shoot at 409,600 ISO. I understand, but certainly I think that's a testament to what Sony are going for with this camera, is this incredible low light performance. There's also things like 10-bit HEIF files, so you can get that smaller file size, but more editing options than 8-bit JPEG, and you've got 10 color profiles in the camera with 4 new ones in there. So let's talk a little bit about the body of the camera. How does it feel to hold? How does it feel to shoot with? I really like it. If you've shot with the A7R IV, this feels very similar. Nice, deep grip. Very ergonomic. You know, the buttons, I know it sounds silly, but the buttons kind of stand out enough that they're easy. They feel good to push, you know. The joystick feels good. And then you've got the wheel as well, which is a D-pad as well. But let's talk about the one thing that has really not just surprised me, but is just so amazing. It's just amazing, is the viewfinder. Now, obviously it's an electronic viewfinder, but it's 9.44 million dots. That is a huge resolution, and it looks just as good as you could imagine it looks with that resolution. Now, in the past, we've been super excited about 5.76 million dots or something along those lines, and that looks great, but 9.44 million is fantastic. It's just so good. It's an OLED display as well. It just looks, I really can't describe how good it looks. You have to try it out for yourself. It's just a very, very good electronic viewfinder. Easily the best one I think I've ever used. It also has a vari-angle touchscreen. So that's a first for Sony Alpha cameras, but it flips all the way out, flips all the way around, so you can actually film yourself, you can see yourself, but that's fantastic for actually being able to film. There's so many times with my A7 III that I wish the screen would actually rotate more, it would flip out, things like that. You know, it's fine, but I love a vari-angle touchscreen. As I mentioned, it is a touchscreen, and you can use that in the menus as well. And that's something which I wasn't expecting, is totally redesigned menus for this camera. And when I say totally redesigned, I mean completely redesigned, and they are fantastic. They are so good. I really didn't think it'd be that much of a big deal. I'm used to the A7 III. If you're used to Sony cameras, you probably get used to the menus. You know, I know some people don't like them, but you get used to them. But honestly, about 1 minute with the new menus, and I realized actually how much I wasn't a massive fan of the old menus. These new menus are so good. I'll be showing you on the screen right now. They are incredibly intuitive. Everything is exactly where you think it should be, and it's so easy to navigate there. So there's no more of this. You know, one thing I'm always looking for is the silent shooting mode. I can never remember which menu it's in and which part it's in. I have to navigate through loads of different things to find it. But here, it makes total sense. Exactly the same with the face and the eye detection. If you want to change it to animal instead of human, it makes total sense where it is. You can, of course, use the joystick, you can use the D-pad, and you can, of course, use touch as well to operate these menus. So loads and loads of things you can do. Really, really helpful. A couple of other things to note about the body. It's got a full-size HDMI port, which I think is really nice. As I mentioned before, dual card slots, so CF Express and UHS-2 SD cards. And of course, it's moisture resistant as well. Now, it still takes the Z battery, so of course you can use all your existing batteries, which is great. And it goes without saying this is an E-mount camera. Now, I say that, I wasn't going to say it, but I feel like I should say it because it's actually quite a big deal. You know, having this one mount system, Sony talk about a one mount system, but it is quite a big deal because there's so many lenses available now for E-mount, you know, from all kinds of different prices. There's just a huge stable of lenses. And actually, for people like me, for example, who have Sony lenses already, that means this is just so easy to get into because I've got the lenses. I don't need to go out and get new lenses. I just need the camera body. So I think that's a big thing. I think it's a big deal. It's also worth noting this is going to have 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connection. So that's improved even from the A9 Mark II, which was already fantastic for that kind of thing. And that's going to help a lot of people out for transfer and all that kind of stuff as well. Now, it's looking like this is going to be available in September. We'll have more details over on our website. I'll pop a link to that down in the description so you can go check that out. I can't wait to check this out properly. You know, take it out, film a bunch of stuff. Oh, I just don't want to put it down, you know? I'm just very excited. I'm gonna use all that 4K 120. I'm just super excited. So I can't wait to check that out, to bring you a full video review where we can show you all kinds of awesome stuff. If you have any questions about the camera at all, don't forget to pop them down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe as well and do all the fun stuff that we all tell you to do here on YouTube. I will of course see you in the next video, and as always, thanks for watching.